Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. We talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm your host, Jeffrey, and subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. Now, in the Mountain West on Saturday, there's a very underrated game late at night between the San Diego State Aztecs traveling on the road at the Fresno State Bulldogs. Who do I think is going to win this game? Let's break it down. San Diego State is 4-3 and 2-1 in the Mountain West to start this season. And Brady Hoke is San Diego State's head coach, and he's back as their head coach because he was their head coach about a decade ago. But he's done a really good job with San Diego State, trying to keep them as one of the top Mountain West programs. They haven't had as good of a season this year as they did last year when they went 11-2, but they're still having a decent season. And in week one, they lost to Arizona 38-20. Obviously, Arizona is a much improved Pac-12 team, but they still aren't a great team. And this was a game San Diego State probably still could have maybe have won, but they didn't play too well in this game. And then they beat Idaho State 38-7, and that was a good win. And then they lost at Utah 35-7. They were not competitive in this game at all. Obviously, Utah is a fantastic Pac-12 team, but still they were not competitive. Then they beat Toledo 17-14. That was a decent win over a MAC team. And then they lost at Boise State 35-13. And obviously Boise State is probably the top Mountain West program, but San Diego State was not really competitive in this game. And then they beat Hawaii 16-14, and obviously Hawaii is really struggling, so San Diego State probably could have beaten them by more. And then they beat Nevada 23-7 at Nevada. This was a pretty good win. Nevada's really struggling this season. And in that game, quarterback Jalen Maiden had 156 yards and 50 rushing yards and a touchdown. He was not San Diego State's quarterback at the beginning of the season. It was the transfer from Virginia Tech, Braxton Burmeister, but now they're going with Jalen Maiden, who was a safety for San Diego State, but now he's at quarterback. He's been decent. At least he can run, and he can throw some for San Diego State, so he has been decent. Running back Chance Bell at 55 yards. Not a bad running back, pretty solid, but San Diego State does need to run the football more. Wide receiver Tyrell Shavers at 36 yards, a pretty good receiver for San Diego State. And then the quarterback now turned wide receiver Braxton Burmeister, 19-yard receiving against Nevada. And they've converted into wide receiver because I guess San Diego State felt he wasn't playing good enough at quarterback. And then on the defensive side of the ball, linebacker Michael Shawcroft at 6 tackles, a fantastic linebacker, and defensive lineman Keyshawn Banks at 3 tackles for San Diego State against Nevada. San Diego State's defense has been pretty good in a lot of their games, but in a couple of their games, like Boise State and Arizona and Utah, they haven't done as well in defense, but those were their better opponents. But against their worst opponents, they played well in defense. Now on the Fresno State side, Fresno State is 3-4 and 2-1 in the Mountain West to start the season. And Jeff Tedford is back as their head coach. He was their head coach before, kind of like how Brady Hoke was at San Diego State as well. And Kalen DeBoer was Fresno State's coach last year, but he's now at Washington. Jeff Tedford is a pretty good coach for Fresno State, and he had good success with them before, and they're having some success this season. Obviously, they have a losing record, but they're still a pretty decent football team. They beat Cal Poly in week 1, 35-7, and that was a good one. Then they lost at Oregon State 35-32, and Oregon State is an improved Pac-12 team, and they were really competitive in this game, so that was a good loss. You never want to say a good loss, but it was a good loss. And then they lost at USC 45-17. They weren't really competitive in this game, just like San Diego State wasn't competitive against Utah. USC is a great football team this year. Then they lost at UConn 19-14. And this was a game that you feel if it was at Fresno State they would have won, but traveling all the way on the road to Connecticut was tough, and obviously UConn is an improved football team this year with Jim Moore at head coach, but still Fresno State, this was a tough loss. Then they lost at Boise State 40-20, so they weren't really competitive against Boise State, just like San Diego State wasn't. Then they beat San Jose State 17-10, and that was a good win. San Jose State's a decent team. And then they won at New Mexico 41-9. They beat down New Mexico, and New Mexico's a really struggling football team. And in that game, quarterback Logan Fife had 225 yards, a touchdown, an interception, 49 rushing yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's a dual-threat quarterback. He's been really solid for Fresno State this season. And running back Jordan Mims at 165 yards and a touchdown, a really, really good running back for Fresno State. And running back Malik Sherrod, 55 yards and a touchdown. So Fresno State has 2 very talented running backs. And wide receiver Jalen Cropper at 158 yards and a touchdown. He's by far Fresno State's best receiver. He's playing really good football for Fresno State and really helping Logan Fife out at quarterback in the passing game. And on the defensive side of the ball, defensive back Elijah Gates at 4 tackles, and defensive back Cale Sanders Jr. at 4 tackles for Fresno State against New Mexico. And Fresno State's defense, kind of like San Diego State, has done pretty well this season. Obviously, they've given up some points to some of their better opponents in the schedule, like Boise State, USC, and Oregon State. But against their worst opponents as well, they've been pretty solid at defense. So their defense is not bad, and their offense has been able to put up points, especially against their worst opponents on the schedule. So who do I think is going to win this game? I think this is a really interesting game because San Diego State and Fresno State are some of the top Mountain West programs, but their records don't look too good. But they've had a tough non-conference schedule, which is why their records aren't as good as what people would usually think they would be. I think Fresno State, having the home field advantage, this game is at Fresno State, is really going to help them out in this game because there's not too much to separate either team. Both offenses are solid. Both defenses are pretty solid. And obviously, Brady Hoke, he does have more experience at San Diego State as head coach than Jeff Tedford does at Fresno State, even though they were both coaches of these teams in the past. But Jeff Tedford's only in his first season back at Fresno State, so you would have the advantage to San Diego State with Brady Hoke there. But I'm going to go with Fresno State to beat San Diego State 31-28. I think San Diego State can win this game, but I think Fresno State's offense has looked a little bit more solid, especially at the quarterback position than San Diego State. That's had some turmoil at that spot. I think both defenses are playing really well, but I just think Fresno State at home, and obviously their offense is doing a little bit better than San Diego State's, and their defenses are about the same. I got to go with Fresno State in a close game over San Diego State 31-28. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below whether you think Fresno State or San Diego State is going to win this game and why. And I will see you next time.